Mason, we really stumbled onto some gold there with John Currie comparison to Jerry Krause in the Last Dance documentary. Yeah, so Jerry Krause, GM of the Chicago Bulls, did a lot of good. He helped build up the Bulls. Now, drafting Michael Jordan certainly helps a lot. But he went up and got Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, put Bill Wennington, guys like that around Michael Jordan. I think the documentary has, in some ways, tried to outline some of the good things Jerry Krause did. It's not as bad as it appeared in the first episode or two, but he also had no people skills, and nobody that mattered really liked him. So that made life much more difficult and kept him from being somebody that wasn't seen as the enemy by the time it was all done. Okay, John Currie here at K-State did a lot of good things, in large part cleaning up a mess of an athletic department that at the time was writing contracts on napkins to In Pursuit of Perfection LLC, giving Ron Prince all this extra money and security and that whole mess. Okay, so he came in, cleaned that up, got K-State fiscally responsible, that honestly set K-State on a path that has helped them be in a position right now during COVID-19 where they're more well-positioned than a lot of different athletic departments are around the country. Along the way, they built some wonderful facilities. Basketball training facility, West Stadium Center, the Near, all that stuff has happened in large part because of John Currie's fundraising and taking advantage of what he was given, which was Bill Snyder's resurgence at the time, which helped bring a lot of money in when football was hot. And he struck while the iron was hot. But the guy just could not deal with people. I mean, no people skills. Felt slimy to be around. Bill Snyder hated him. Frank Martin hated him. Nobody that mattered really was pleased about working with him, which makes things more difficult and makes you look like the enemy, because who is going to go against the popular star? Who's going to go against Michael Jordan, who hates Jerry Krause throughout that whole movie and is taking shots at him every single time that we see those two around each other? Everybody's going to side with MJ there. You got to know that, and you got to have some better people skills to be able to get along with that dude. Same as when Frank Martin starts to hate you and he winds up walking out the door, yeah, you're going to have a mutiny on your hands, and you're going to have a group of people protesting Bruce Weber's hiring out in the parking lot of Bill Snyder Family Stadium / Bramlage Coliseum because you're the asshole there. And it's the same deal with Bill Snyder. Bill Snyder, I feel like, did a pretty good job of keeping that a secret, but definitely, those guys didn't get along at all. And it's because John Currie had no people skills despite the good that he was doing.
Well, and I think one of the things that really, to me, Currie and Krause have in common here is, like you said, they did some good things, but it gets looked over because nobody liked them. Jerry Krause at least did enough good things to have a banner hanging in the rafters of the United Center in his honor because of what he did for the Bulls. But ultimately, they wanted more and more respect. And how do you get respect in these situations? Well, it's proving yourself. So for John Currie, he wanted to hire his own basketball coach. I'm sure that when he came to K-State, he didn't envision Bill Snyder being the guy that outlasted him. He probably thought he'd be here and get to hire the next football coach, which is exactly what every athletic director wants. I don't think that there's a single athletic director that wants to go to a job and say, you know what, if for the next 25 years I can have the same football coach that the guy before me hired, I want that. No, you want to make your own mark. That's exactly what he got at Tennessee, and now he screwed it up so badly he ended up at Wake Forest. But I think that they have some similarities there where they wanted to ruin good things because of personal interest.
That totally true. Totally true, man. Like John Currie's personal interest was making sure that everything was as squeaky clean as possible, and Frank Martin wasn't going to do that. Admittedly, sometimes to a fault, because Frank Martin had his version of Slim Bowler. Slim Bowler. All right, so yeah, Frank had some Slim Bowler characters hanging around, all right? Turns out Curtis Malone wasn't a great dude. There were some Slim Bowlers hanging around, and yes, that drove, obviously, John Currie nuts, and he wanted to get his own guy in there that was going to do it his own way. And the same thing with Bill Snyder. He inherits Bill Snyder, a guy who doesn't get along with him, trying to come in and make sure everything is always on the up and up. And yeah, he wanted to go out and get Jim Levitt towards the end of that, which we found out courtesy of Brett McMurphy's reporting afterwards.
Well, and exactly in that situation, who is in charge actually at K-State. It's not actually the athletic director, it's Bill Schneider, because everybody's always going to side with Bill Schneider. Same thing with the Bulls. Who's actually in charge there? Well, first off, once you get past Michael Jordan, it's Phil Jackson, because Phil Jackson is the successful coach. Everybody loves him. Jerry Krause is a very hateable guy. Typically the guy that's at the very top and in power, it's very easy to hate that person, not so easy to like him, but it's easy to like the guy that's just below them and is able to kind of be the fun guy every once in a while. And so I think the situations are very, very comparable.
And in the end, you ask who's actually in charge here. Well, I mean, Jerry Krause / John Currie, they were actually in charge, but what happens is then you chase people off. Michael Jordan leaves not once but twice from the Chicago Bulls to go retire. Frank Martin leaves to go take an objectively worse job at South Carolina because he can't stand it anymore. And so, yeah, you're in charge, but you just drove the guy that everybody really loved out the door, which doesn't hurt or doesn't help your popularity and certainly doesn't help the narrative crafted around you by the time it's all said and done. And I think it's okay to say, hey, much like I think a lot of Bulls fans now would at least look back and acknowledge that Jerry Krause did do some good things, you're still going to ultimately have negative feelings associated with that guy. That ain't going to change for me, man. I mean, look, I appreciate what John Currie did certainly more now than I did at the time, and I'm willing to admit that and understand it, but that also doesn't mean that I have to like the guy. Didn't like the guy, don't like that he ran off Frank Martin, and all of that I think was in some ways a mistake at the time, and those feelings are always going to be raw because of that. But what a wonderfully apt comparison that is.